Tibetan students and government workers are banned from participating in religious observances, as Chinese authorities continue efforts to separate Tibetans from their cultural heritage and identity.
Here's a summary of the article.
Chinese authorities in Tibet have tightened restrictions on a major annual festival in the regional capital Lhasa this year, banning participation by students and government employees, local sources say. Speaking to RFA's Tibetan service on Friday, one Lhasa resident said that a recent notice sent out by Chinese authorities forbids participation in religious ceremonies during the festival period by Tibetan students, school officials, and government employees. Government efforts to block Tibetan students' participation in religious events led earlier this year to the cancelling of holidays falling on politically sensitive dates, including the March 10th anniversary of a 1959 Tibetan uprising against Chinese rule, the source said. Preventing Tibetan students from visiting places of worship and from taking part in religious festivities is a deliberate attempt by the Chinese government to separate them from the influence of Tibetan religion and culture, he said. Armed Chinese police in uniform and in plain clothes now swamp the streets of Lhasa during sensitive political and religious anniversaries to keep a close watch on pilgrims and worshippers, the source said, adding that this tight security and surveillance have now become so pervasive that Tibetans consider it a part of their daily lives. Public assemblies at monasteries in Tibetan regions of China have greatly increased in size in recent years, observers and participants say, as tens of thousands of Tibetans gather to assert their national and cultural identity in the face of Chinese domination. Chinese security forces, fearful of sudden protests by Tibetans opposed to Beijing's rule, often monitor and sometimes close down events involving large crowds, sources say.
This post received a score of 5,733, with an upvote ratio of 96%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Is it paranoia or what? It seems they want to eliminate any and all diversity, survey everybody with AI etc. Seems like a huge waste of resources. My guess is the tech companies are in bed with the government and there is a ton of corruption.
Religion is targeted because they teach morality and beliefs that do not align with the CCP. If you were a top gov official, do you think that your fellow comrades would feel good about possible atrocities your government commits if they are taught that human life has meaning and people are gifted with basic rights? Or that they should work to improve their lives versus giving one's life to advance the state? Would people enthusiastically follow government programs when they believe there is a higher being of existence after death? Beliefs are dangerous in a totalitarian regime because it shatters the idea that the state is infallible and that people can find happiness by giving to the state. Point I'm getting across is that any totalitarian state government will try and suppress any belief system that does not align with their beliefs. In this case, CCP wants to eliminate not only religion but the cultural identity of those who follow it as much as it wants to wipe any identity that isn't Chinese. In this specific case, religion teaches values that do not see eye to eye with China.
It's about the fact that the Communist Party wants to enforce its own value system and ideology. The Communist Party's persecution of religious groups has to be looked at in context of their wider policies. In the case of Tibetan Buddhism, it is repressed for the latter reason. By continuing their own form of Buddhism, Tibetans assert their own identity that is separate from the Chinese identity prescribed by the Communist Party. The Communist Party are kind of control freaks and can't tolerate the concept of people having identities the party doesn't define.
So theoretically they would do this to the entire world if they took it over?
If there was a big red button that would magically grant that, without a doubt.
If there was a big red button that could wipe out religion on a worldwide scale, well, let's just say that there would be a lot of people wanting to hammer on that.
Chinese government disgusts me. I am a Buddhist and this angers and saddens me. Tibetans live and breathe Buddhism.
Many people do. Destroying a person's right to spirituality goes against anything spirituality is. Killing the Buddha is the first step.
This has been happening since 1951.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.